Hi again, YouTubers. Saved by grace is such a wide topic. I've studied it almost every day since I completed my second video in this series, Saved by Grace. I could make 100 10-minute videos and not cover it all. So I would not hope to finish it in this video, but I'm just going to share a chain of thoughts whereby I share principles and scriptural authority to base those principles upon. I say that we're living in a glorious time in Earth's history because we live in the last days. I can say that with all confidence because of the fact that Jesus Christ, even while he was on earth, referred to this period of time as the last days, the end time. If you believe, as I do, that the world is about 6,000 years old and only God knows, and that the first period of time in the first 2,000 years, the flood happened, Abraham was called, and such, and then from Abraham to Jesus, another 2,000 year period, and from that time until this time, we're living in the last third, which you can call the last days. The last period to end this reign of terror that we've gone through, this age of sin, if you will, is about to come to an end. God planned it that way. We are living in the midst of eternity, a space of time that God has carved out, if you will. He created day and night. He created the weekly cycle, the monthly cycle, represented by the moon, the cycles of the moon. Specifically, so that there would be a period of time that he could bring to an end. Because he knew within this period of time there was going to be sin. And he couldn't allow sin to be immortalized. Which is why he took Adam and Eve away from the tree of life after they had eaten from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Otherwise, we would be immortal sinners. But we're not. We're mortal. And God is going to bring this to an end. And this is what makes grace, by which we're saved, so important. It is because of his grace that he has set this time limit to allow Satan to do his evil work and to cause pain and suffering, death and destruction, so that God would be seen as righteous and that he allowed Satan to have his reign. He could have snuffed him out right at the beginning, and then the angels would have looked at Satan laying there on the cloud and said, Satan's right. If you don't obey God's laws, he kills you. And they would have served him from that point on in fear, eliminating the possibility of his ever being able to show grace. And mercy would have no meaning. And so, as we continue to look at grace, we need to know that it is by God's grace that he allows the suffering and such to go on, and to allow Satan to have his reign, so that he can then at the end, bring it to a close with all of humanity and all of the angels knowing that love is the best way, that disobedience and rebellion against the law of God is death. It brings as a natural consequence death. God doesn't have to kill anybody. Disobedience and rebellion against the law of God results in death. The law of God was not written down until Sinai. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't there. God gave man an opportunity to keep his law without writing it down in stone. And they failed. It resulted in the whole earth being destroyed except for 8 individuals at one time. And then God allowed another period of time and allowed us to see in Israel how, if left to inhabit the same land as the enemy, you will become like the enemy, and you will need deliverance. And this world now is living in the wilderness of sin. After Moses delivered Egypt, God's people from Egypt, they entered into what is known as the wilderness of sin. That's what the Bible calls it, the wilderness of sin. Wilderness capitalized and sin capitalized. It's an actual place. And as they wandered in the desert for 40 years, and you know they came up to the Jordan to begin with, and they rebelled. And 10 out of 12 spies came back and said, "Oh, it's too big, it's too bad, it's ugly." Only Joshua and Caleb said, "Hey, we can take it, we're victorious." But the majority ruled, and they turned back into Sinai and trekked there for 40 years. That's where we are right now. At the death of Jesus Christ, we were offered that opportunity. The whole world could have surrendered to Jesus Christ, and it would have been over. Satan had revealed his nature in the killing of Christ, the murdering of God's Son. Satan had revealed his nature, and we could have called it quits if everyone had accepted Jesus Christ's sacrifice. But it didn't happen. And so that's reserved for another age. Today. I live in great fear. Fear that people will allow themselves to be deceived regarding the power of Satan and his ability to deceive. I live in a fear of people thinking that they have no real responsibility in the matter. God has saved us, and so we just have faith in His grace. Cheap grace. That's cheap. Anything you don't pay a price for is cheap. The greater the price, the more worthy the purchase. The price has been paid. We don't have to pay a price for salvation. But we do have a responsibility in our salvation. God says we need to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. So I would like to close this video now and continue in the next in regard to what is our responsibility in receiving the grace of God. God bless you.